Some dreams don't disappear because you failed. They disappear because you spoke them before they were strong enough to survive the air. There was a time when he believed that sharing his vision made it real, that speaking it out loud would give it shape, that telling people what he was building would somehow speed up the process. He thought transparency meant courage. He thought announcing his future meant commitment. So he talked. He talked about the discipline he was going to build, about the mornings he would wake up earlier, about the body he would sculpt, about the mind he would sharpen. He described the version of himself that existed clearly in his imagination, confident, focused, respected, unstoppable. And every time he spoke, he felt something warm in his chest, a small rush of satisfaction. People listened, some smiled, some nodded, some said he had potential, some said they believed in him. For a moment, that was enough. But slowly, something began to change. After every conversation, he felt lighter, calmer, strangely accomplished, as if a step had already been taken, as if progress had already been made, even though nothing in his daily routine had actually changed. He didn't notice it at first. He just felt less urgency, less pressure, less hunger. The fire that once kept him restless at night began to dim, and he couldn't understand why. He still believed in the dream, he still wanted it, he still imagined it clearly, but the drive, the tension, the sharp edge that once pushed him forward was softer now. One night, lying awake in the quiet darkness, he finally allowed himself to ask a difficult question. What if talking about it was replacing doing it? The thought unsettled him. He remembered the first time the dream appeared. It hadn't arrived as a speech. It hadn't come with explanations. It was just a feeling, a quiet pull towards something better, something more disciplined, more intentional, more powerful. Back then, he hadn't told anyone. Back then, he had simply started. Small changes, private changes, unnoticed improvements. He remembered how strong he felt during that silent phase, how focused, how locked in, how protective he was of the process. There was tension inside him then, and that tension created movement. But once he started talking, something shifted. The mind is deceptive. When you speak your goals, the brain releases a sense of reward. It reacts as if progress has already been made, as if effort has already been invested, as if the identity you described has already been partially earned. And satisfaction, when earned too early, is dangerous, because satisfaction kills urgency. He began to see the pattern clearly. Each time he explained his plans, the emotional pressure eased. Each time someone praised his ambition, the need to prove it weakened. Each time he imagined their future admiration, it felt almost as good as actually earning it. Almost. But almost is the space where dreams fade. There is something sacred about silence. Silence keeps the tension alive. Silence protects the fragile stage of growth. Silence forces you to confront reality instead of performing progress. When no one knows what you are building, there is no applause to chase, no validation to depend on, no image to maintain. There is only the work. And work, done consistently, without witnesses, reshapes a person from the inside out. He decided to experiment. He stopped announcing his routines. He stopped explaining his plans. When someone asked what he was working on, he simply said, "I'm focusing." No details, no timelines, no grand declarations. At first, it felt strange, almost uncomfortable. The ego wanted to speak, wanted recognition, wanted someone to acknowledge the ambition. But he resisted. He returned to waking up early, quietly, without posting about it. He trained his body without documenting it. He studied without discussing what he would eventually achieve. The silence felt heavy but powerful. And something unexpected happened. The hunger came back. The tension returned. Without conversation draining the energy, it stayed contained inside him, building, intensifying, sharpening his focus. He started to notice how much stronger his discipline felt when it was private, how much more consistent his actions became when they were not being evaluated, how much clearer his mind was when it wasn't rehearsing explanations. There is a psychological law few people talk about. When you declare an identity publicly, your brain begins to treat it as partially achieved. The social acknowledgement creates a premature sense of completion, and the internal drive decreases. But when the identity is unspoken, it remains incomplete, and the mind seeks completion through action. Silence preserves the gap between who you are and who you want to become, and that gap creates movement. He began to appreciate being underestimated, to enjoy when people assumed he was the same as before. There was freedom in not correcting them. There was power in letting results speak later. Instead of spending energy convincing others, he invested it in improving himself. Day after day, repetition replaced rhetoric. Slowly, almost invisibly, change accumulated. His posture shifted, his habits stabilized, his thoughts became more disciplined, his reactions more controlled, his distractions weaker. No announcement marked the transformation. No dramatic reveal declared his evolution. It was quiet, steady, undeniable. He realized something deeper. Not everyone deserves early access to your becoming. Some people project their fears. Some measure your ambition against their own limits. Some smile while quietly hoping you remain familiar. When you expose a dream too soon, you expose it to interpretation, doubt, comparison, and subtle resistance, and fragile things do not thrive under scrutiny. Seeds grow underground for a reason. In darkness, without noise, without observation, roots strengthen. Only when the foundation is secure does growth become visible, and by then, it no longer depends on approval. Lying in bed again one night, he felt a different kind of calm, not the calm of false satisfaction, but the calm of earned progress, the quiet confidence that comes from consistency. He no longer felt the urge to explain himself. He no longer rehearsed future victories in conversation. He simply moved. There was discipline in his mornings, focus in his afternoons, restraint in his evenings. Silence became part of his identity. Not silence born from fear, but silence born from certainty. Certainty that the work mattered more than the words. Certainty that attention was a distraction, not an asset in the early stages. Certainty that the most powerful transformations happen privately. If you are holding something right now, an idea, a shift, a commitment you're afraid to lose, guard it. Protect it from unnecessary exposure. Let it breathe in your own space. Let the tension push you, not the applause soothe you. You do not need witnesses at the beginning. You need repetition. You do not need validation. You need structure. You do not need to convince anyone. You need to become undeniable. And when the day finally comes, when the habits are solid, when the identity is earned, when the results stand on their own, you will not need a speech. You will not need to explain the process. You will not need to remind anyone what you once said you would do. The evidence will be visible, and the silence that once protected you will be understood, not as hesitation, but as strength. So tonight, as the world quiets again, and the darkness feels heavy but honest, breathe slowly. Release the need to announce. Release the need to impress. Release the urge to perform progress. Let your dream return to its original form, a quiet pull, a private commitment, a tension that creates motion. Keep it close, let it grow roots, move in silence, and allow your life, not your words, to make the noise.